Imagine walking into a room where every single light switch is wired directly to you. That is how a narcissist views their dynamic with an empath. In the beginning, they love compliance because it feels safe, but compliance is just the welcome mat. What they are actually addicted to is the rush of pushing a button and watching you light up, flicker, or dim. They live for the tremor in your voice, the defensive paragraph you type out at 2 in the morning, or the hurt look in your eyes when they drop a cruel comment. That reaction is their oxygen. It tells them with absolute certainty that they matter, that they are inside your head, and that they hold the steering wheel of your emotions. Then, something strange and catastrophic happens from their perspective. You change the locks on your nervous system. You stop arguing back, you stop explaining yourself, and you stop letting their bait hook into your chest. To an outside observer, it looks like you are just being calm or taking the high road. But inside the narcissist's world, a massive structural collapse has just begun. When you stop reacting, you stop feeding the fire. You take away the emotional mirrors they desperately need to look at themselves and feel alive. Without your anger, your tears, or your anxiety, the energy exchange dies instantly. This creates what psychologists call an internal injury to the false self, but it goes much deeper than that. It triggers a terrifying psychological crisis because of what your calm actually communicates. When you refuse to give them a reaction, you stop validating their existence. You aren't just ignoring them, you are showing them that they no longer have the power to move you. In that terrifying silence, you stop being a source of fuel and suddenly transform into a mirror. And that mirror reflects back their ultimate worst nightmare: total, absolute irrelevance. They realize, perhaps for the first time, that they are completely powerless over you. And that realization sends a shockwave straight through their fragile ego. To truly grasp why your silence turns a narcissist completely inside out, you have to look past the loud confidence, the polished exterior, and the intimidating grandiosity. Underneath all of that armor, their internal wiring is actually broken. Narcissists suffer from a deep, chronic inability to generate their own sense of self-worth, stability, or emotional regulation from the inside. While healthy people can soothe themselves, look in the mirror, and know who they are regardless of what others think, a narcissist cannot do this. They are like emotional chameleons who rely entirely on an external power grid to stay lit. They need the emotional output of the people around them just to feel like they actually exist. This is why they treat other people as emotional vending machines. Every time they poke, prod, or provoke you, they are inserting a coin and waiting for the product to drop. When you used to fight back, argue your point, cry, or rush to defend your character, you were giving them exactly what their system required. Even when you were furious with them, that anger still served as powerful fuel. To a narcissist's warped brain, your anger means you care enough to fight, which proves to them that they matter and that they have immense power over your reality. They can comfortably digest your anger, your frustration, and your stress because those emotions keep them connected to the grid. However, the moment an empath completely stops reacting, the dynamic shatters in an instant. When you drop the rope, refuse to defend yourself, and offer a brick wall of calm indifference, the fuel supply is cut off completely. There is no coin coming out of the machine, and the lights in their internal system begin to flicker out. To a normal person, a lack of drama feels like peace, relief, or a healthy boundary. But the narcissist's brain does not process peace. It interprets this sudden emotional flatline as an absolute life-threatening emergency. It feels like an existential threat to their very survival, because without your reactions, they are forced to confront the empty, hollow void sitting right at the center of their identity. This brings us to the most fascinating and hidden truth about their psychology. They can handle your hatred, your disgust, and your anger all day long, because those emotions still mean you are paying attention to them. But they cannot handle total emotional starvation. When you go completely blank and refuse to play the game, You create an unbearable vacuum inside their mind. You stop being a person they can manipulate and start becoming a blank wall that bounces their own emptiness right back at them. That sudden deprivation is agonizing for them, and it is the exact reason why your silence becomes the loudest, most deafening message they have ever had to face. When the emotional fuel supply suddenly cuts off and your calm detachment settles in like a heavy winter, this is the exact moment the carefully constructed mask cracks right down the middle and finally slips off. Most people completely misunderstand what happens next because they assume that if a narcissist is being ignored, or if they realize you are no longer playing their game, they will simply get bored, pack their bags, and walk away into the sunset. But human psychology, especially disordered psychology, does not work that way at all. Instead of walking away, the narcissist enters a state of absolute panic, and their behavior pivots sharply into high-gear escalation. They turn up the heat because to them, losing your reaction feels like losing control of their own oxygen supply. To fix this sudden crisis, they launch into a rapid-fire cycle of manipulation tactics designed with one single goal in mind: to shock your system until you finally snap and give them a reaction. This is where you will see them pull out every trick in the book, starting with classic hoovering techniques. One minute they are playing the absolute victim, sending long, pathetic messages about how much you are hurting them or how sick they feel. And the next minute they are acting like your biggest fan, throwing out sweeping compliments or pretending like nothing ever went wrong. They will bounce between extreme affection, intense guilt-tripping, and nostalgic memories just to see which button finally triggers an emotional response from you. When those hoovering attempts fail to crack your shell, they shift gears into manufacturing full-blown crises out of thin air. They might suddenly develop a medical emergency, create an urgent life crisis that requires your immediate attention, or pick a chaotic fight over something entirely absurd and trivial. They do this because drama is their natural habitat, and they know that manufactured emergencies act like a powerful magnet for an empath's natural sense of empathy and obligation. They are essentially throwing a massive tantrum in the middle of the room, knocking things over and screaming for attention, simply because they cannot stand the agonizing discomfort of being ignored. If even the manufactured crises don't work, they resort to something even darker: subtle, calculated character assassination. They will twist stories, play the deeply wounded martyr to mutual friends or family members, or drop passive-aggressive hints and rumors designed to make you look like the bad guy. They are desperately trying to poke the bear from a safe distance, hoping that if they insult you enough, spread enough gossip, or push your buttons hard enough, your anger will finally flare up. They need you to defend yourself, because the moment you text back an angry paragraph or try to clear your name, they win. Every frantic text, every twisted rumor, and every dramatic accusation is nothing more than a desperate, clawing attempt to retrieve their lost mirror and prove to themselves that they still hold the remote control to your nervous system. When you finally reach that point of total, unshakable detachment, something profound happens that changes the entire trajectory of your life, though it feels entirely counterintuitive while you are living through it. For months or even years, you have likely been trapped in an exhausting cycle of walking on eggshells, constantly bracing for the next blow, and feeling entirely tethered to their unpredictable moods through an invisible, unbreakable rubber band. That invisible tether is what psychologists call a trauma bond, a powerful chemical addiction to the highs and lows of a toxic relationship. But the deep hidden truth of this dynamic is that a trauma bond requires two people pulling on opposite ends of the rope. The moment you completely stop reacting, let go of your end, and drop the rope, You don't just change the dynamic, you completely snap the trauma bond from your side of the court. This explains why the narcissist's obsession with you suddenly spikes to an all-time high right when you feel like you are finally starting to heal and move on. They are not frantically checking your social media, driving by your house, or sending flying monkeys after you because they suddenly realized how much they love you, miss you, or value your soul. They are obsessed for one terrifying reason. They have just realized, with absolute horror, that their primary weapon has completely broken, rendering their entire manipulation playbook utterly useless. Throughout their entire life, their psychological survival mechanism has relied on a foolproof formula: provoke a reaction, harvest the emotional fuel, and maintain total dominance over the other person. When you refuse to give them that feedback loop, their cheat code stops working, and their brain enters a state of panic because they have no idea how to function without your emotional compliance. This is where the ultimate irony of the situation reveals itself in the most striking way possible. By refusing to engage, argue, or defend yourself, you effectively strip away every shred of power they thought they held over you. You stop playing their game entirely, and in doing so, you take away the external shield they used to hide behind. You leave them standing completely naked and face to face with the gaping, terrifying, empty void that sits right at the center of their soul, an internal emptiness they have spent their entire lives running away from, projecting onto others, and trying to fill with chaos. When you stop reacting, you stop being a distraction from their inner demons, and you become the mirror that forces them to stare straight into their own hollow reality. That is why your silence is so agonizing for them. You aren't just walking away, you are handing them back their own emptiness. And there is nothing more terrifying to a narcissist than finally having to sit alone in a room with who they really are.